Welcome back to Women Beyond Borders podcast, the space where we tell the stories of women who are redefining what it means to build a life, a career, and a purpose across borders. Today we are honored to speak with a woman whose leadership journey spans countries, industries, and generations. Emily Monastiriotis is the managing partner of Simmons & Simmons, one of Europe's leading international law firms, and has been recognized as one of the most influential women in Europe in finance. Welcome, Emily, and thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you very much for having me, Margaret.
Emily, your journey started long before becoming managing partner. When you look back at your early life and the cultural influences that shaped you, what were the first borders you crossed that set you on the path to law and leadership?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. I grew up in a very small village in Greece, in southern Corfu. I had the most amazing childhood. So I went to a really small school. There were 30 of us there. My mother was English. My father was Greek. And so I suppose I grew up in a multicultural house and a multi-generational house because I was quite typical at the time. I was living with my grandparents as well in Greece, and I had a strong desire to leave the village, not because I didn't enjoy it there. I had an amazing life, but I felt that there was a whole part of me that I didn't really know much about, which was the English side of my heritage. So I wanted to come to the university in the UK, which is what I did in 1995. So the first actual border I crossed was in 1995, which is a long time ago, Margaret. Because I remember even at the time, there was no such things as mobile phones or emails. I felt a very, very long way from home, kind of quite disconnected. So that was kind of the first physical kind of border I decided to cross to go to university. And from there, kind of my career then stayed in the UK. I only intended to stay in England for 3, maximum 4 years. But here I am 31 years later and I haven't left.
In the recent financial news profile, you share a beautiful story. It was your 13-year-old daughter who encouraged you to go for a top job. Can you take us back to that moment?
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, I think the way the financial news positioned it was my 13-year-old daughter. To be fair, it was also my 11-year-old daughter had very similar advice. So obviously go for a global managing partner role at a firm like Simmons & Simmons. I mean, we have 23 offices in 17 countries, requires a lot of sacrifices, a lot of travel, a lot of time away from home. And I had an international role before. So prior to being global managing partner, I was international head of dispute resolution. I did also have travel, but I realized that I was taking on, if I was to be elected, I'd be taking on a whole new level of responsibility and travel. And effectively, I would not be able to be as present as much as I'd like to be. And that would require sacrifices of our family. So it was very much kind of a family decision. I was obviously kind of very engaged with my daughters, speaking to them about what it would mean, what it would mean from a practical term, but also what it would mean for them. And it had I took my 13-year-old, and I think this is the part that the financial news picked up. We went for this really lovely dinner one night, just the two of us, and I said to, look, this is a genuine choice. I want you to think about whether or not I should go ahead for this, because this is what it's going to mean. I'm going to be away more. I'll obviously be traveling. She was like, Mama, you've got to go for it. You have to go for it. And it was it was one of those kind of really heartwarming decisions where I knew I was making the right decision. But secondly, I knew that we'd done something right in life in terms of bringing up daughters who also had ambition for me and for them. They thought it was like a really great opportunity. And she's nearly 12 now. My 10-year-old at the time was very much of the same view. They were very keen for me to be elected. And I'll never, ever forget the moment when I got to tell them that I'd been elected as managing partner. They were so thrilled and so happy. And genuinely, they were my number one cheerleaders during the entire kind of election process that I underwent. So it was one of those moments where you thought, actually, I've done something quite well in my life in terms of if I've got kids, girls who really are so ambitious.
Connecting to this, how has motherhood shaped the way you lead and make decisions or see your role in the organization?
I think becoming a mother makes you see the world in quite a different way. You want to leave the world in a better place. You want to create more opportunities for other people. You certainly want to create kind of more career path and more leadership positions for women. And I think I have felt, and I still feel very much kind of the weight home almost of being a female role model. And for me, kind of motherhood's kind of really shaped how I am and how I act as a person. Obviously, my family will always come first, and my daughters will always come first. But you look at the world, I think, in a slightly different, in a slightly more mature way. When it comes to what does it mean in terms of female leaders at the firm, you of course want to cultivate the next talent, the next female talents that are coming through the firm as well. At a time where lots of firms are pulling away from DE&I because of various political pressures, that's not something that we would ever do at Simmons. We came out and we restated our social mobility targets, for example, in the UK, because I passionately believe that a diverse workforce is absolutely what we need for Simmons and Simmons to thrive in a very, very competitive environment. And making sure that we're kind of fostering that culture of diversity is really kind of really key to me. And it's one of the ways that I think I very much hope that I lead by example at the firm. And it's interesting, isn't it? Because lots of people say to me, "Oh, your story is really inspirational." I genuinely don't see myself as an inspiration. I don't. But then I do realise that with more female global managing partners being elected, it creates kind of that role model for other women to think, yeah, I can go for it. And it's so great to see that there are so many more female managing partners now at law firms.
I mean, my other question would be becoming a managing partner after nearly 2 decades in one firm is rare. So, what were the biggest psychological or professional borders you had to cross to step into the leadership role, especially as a woman in a sector that still struggles with gender representation?
Yeah, so I've been with Simmons and Simmons 9 years. So I worked previously at a large international global law firm. I then went to a smaller firm, a more UK focused firm, and I then decided to take the role at Simmons and Simmons. And genuinely, Margaret, within 5 days of being there, I knew I'd found my work home. I loved being at Simmons & Simmons. From the very first day, from the interview process, actually, I just knew it was a special place. Every person that I met was very welcoming, kind of very engaging, very high performing. It's a very high performing culture, and I loved it. And I was given some amazing opportunities, and I was given those amazing opportunities by people who genuinely believed in me before I believed in myself, if that makes sense. And so I joined. I was head of insurance and construction. Because I'm a construction litigator. I then became head of UK dispute resolution, and then the international role came up. And I remember Jeremy Hoyland, the former managing partner, talking to me about whether or not I'd be interested in the role. I remember leaving that meeting thinking, I can't believe he thinks that I'm good enough to take on that role. And just that kind of belief that people showed in me meant the world to me, because that's how kind of my confidence kind of grew, I suppose, over the years. Because the more people that support you, the more people that reach out to you, the more people say to you, you should be going for a role, the better, the more confident it makes you feel. And that's how I then we were going to have our first managing partner election for over 14 years at the firm, and I thought I'd rather go for it and not get it than not go for it. Obviously, I think I would have been a bit distraught if I hadn't been appointed, if I was being honest. But I got myself comfortable that that was the right thing for me to do. And yeah, I just thought if people believe that I can do it, I should believe that I could do it. And it's that kind of that confidence, that self-belief that comes with time and comes with kind of making sure you've got really strong supporters and people that you can go and talk to, that can kind of have honest discussions with. I found really, really helpful.
And you were also recently named one of the most influential women in Europe in finance. In this way, what does influence mean to you, and what responsibilities come with that influence, especially for the next generation of women?
Again, it was kind of one of those pinch me moments. I was like, what? I've been 50 most influential women in finance in Europe. How is this even a thing? And obviously, as I said to you before, when you get recognition like that, you feel kind of the weight of responsibility in terms of making sure that you're not letting people down, but that you're kind of showcasing what it is to be a female leader, what it is to be leading a 670 million pound business like Simmons and Simmons. And yeah, influence is quite an interesting word, because the more you get into leadership, the more you realize that leadership is about making kind of some difficult decisions and delivering on difficult decisions. But a lot of it is about influence. A lot of it is, how do you take people on the journey with you? I spend an awful lot of time with partners at the firm. I see kind of essentially the partners of the firm are essentially in corporate terms, kind of my clients. I spend a lot of time with them, but a lot of the things that you do is around influence. How can you influence decisions? How can you push the firm in the right direction and take people on a journey with you? Because when you're managing partner at a firm like Simmons, you're there to lead partners and you're there to lead people, and therefore you've got to take them on the journey with you. So yes, of course, I've got to set the strategy of the firm. I've got to make some difficult financial decisions for the firm, but I'm there to try and influence people and to bring them along on the journey with me. So I'd say I spend a lot of time trying to develop kind of my influence skills, which hopefully will improve over the years.
And as you mentioned, naturally, every leadership journey includes tough lessons, great mentors, and moments that redefined us. What is the hardest leadership lesson you learned?
That's a really interesting question. I often find I learn from my mistakes, and as long as you're willing to embrace your mistakes, I think that's absolutely fine. I like to, as kind of I mature into my role, I prefer to learn to do fewer mistakes. I'm not sure I've ever had any kind of moments where it's been really, really hard. I think where I've struggled in the past is where I've had really kind of competing demands on people, competing demands on my time, and haven't been able to spend or devote enough time to people. That's always really difficult, because you can't be here, there, and everywhere. But I'm not sure I've ever had kind of any massive setbacks. I'm very good at compartmentalizing things. I'm very good at kind of putting everything into perspective. And I recognize I'm only one person. I can only do what I can do. I like to think I'm a very authentic person. I like to think I'm a very, very fair person. So people are also very forgiving when you make mistakes. So I can't point to a single thing where I thought, well, that was an utter disaster, thankfully.
What is one piece of advice you would give to women navigating a new beginning?
Grasp opportunities. For me, I've always kind of grasped every opportunity that's given. I mean, it's one of those things. I always think hard work pays off. Like, show me someone who's successful who hasn't had to work hard, because I just don't think people like that exist. But I think sometimes we're a bit reluctant to kind of grasp opportunities, thinking either we're not good enough to do something, or we're not quite sure. I just think sometimes you just have to go for it. Just see what's going to happen. Just get comfortable that failure is also okay. And I suppose that's why I don't think of setbacks, because you always learn. You always learn. Even when you fail, you learn. And that's what it is. So for me, it's kind of grasp opportunities that are given to you.
As you mentioned, you spend your career working across industries, teams, and different countries. How has working in international finance and law shaped your sense of identity and belonging?
Yeah, I mean, that's what I love. I love kind of working with different people in different offices across industries. That is the part of my role that is the single most exciting part of my role, and kind of trying to identify cultural norms and sensitivities in different cultures, I think is always really, really fascinating. And that's why when I was saying before about kind of being diversity of thought, diversity of gender, ethnicity is so important. And for me, as I say, is the bit that I love. I love kind of like when I walk in, for example, into our Singapore office, I know I'm at Simmons and Simmons Singapore, right? I know we've got local people, we've got people who are there from different offices. We have a lot of fluidity between our offices, actually, because we work cross-border so often. But I love the fact that you walk into any of our offices and you know both that you're at a Simmons office, but also which country you're in. We've opened recently in Riyadh. So again, kind of being part of being a law firm with an office in Saudi is a really interesting time. I think there's some amazing female talent coming through Saudi. So one of the most, I don't know, it was so privileged. I was so privileged. I was asked to go and speak at Princess Noor University, which is a women's only, it's the largest women's only university in the world in Riyadh. I mean, it has its own metro that goes around the university. I think it's got about 35,000 students. And it was one of the most engaging sessions I've ever been involved in. We were asked to do a round table. Thankfully, we'd done some slides in advance and we turned up and we were in a huge lecture theatre with at least 250 women there. And the quality of people in that room, the talent, the female talent that exists in Saudi, I think is really phenomenal. And it was such a privilege to meet these women who are really keen to pursue a career in law and a career in business. I just think moments like that make you really kind of stop and think about barriers that other women have faced or other people have faced, and how they're looking to overcome them, and how that makes them kind of makes you kind of very determined, that kind of determination to prove a point, to prove that you've got a real value in the business world was just really, it was so engaging to see.
Yeah, I feel like being in those rooms and in those spaces makes you realize. You also highlight in culture inclusion and long-term strategic vision as a core priorities. But in practice, how do you balance the commercial demands of a global law firm with your commitment to people and culture?
Yeah, look, I always talk about the fact that I always talk about clients, people, technology, and financial results. They're the four key pillars of the strategy at the firm. Clients come first, because without clients we wouldn't have an organization. But when it comes to people, I think sometimes we have to have an honest discussion. We are a high performance culture. People have chosen to come and work at an international law firm, and with that comes demands on your time. But the part that's really important to me is that we have a very supportive culture at Simmons and Simmons. And I see it as my key role to get the best out of the talent that we have at the firm, because genuinely we've got amazing talent at the firm, and really developing our people and doing things like making sure we have, for example, international secondments. So anyone and any role in the office can work out of a different office 2 weeks of the year. We make sure we have kind of client secondments. We have a really great mentoring scheme. And I say that because I was a global head of mentoring before I was managing partner. So we developed a very tailored mentoring scheme at the firm, where anyone can apply to have a mentor at the firm, and you get a very tailored, you identify as part of the process what it is you want to be discussing with your mentor. Like, do you want advice on business development, or are you about to come back after maternity leave and you need to work out how to kind of juggle motherhood? Are you struggling in terms of developing a particular client? Do you want to try and improve your technical skills? So it's a very, very tailored mentoring scheme that we have, which is hugely popular. And it's one of our ways of supporting our people, making sure that we allow time if people are kind of really busy on a transaction, to make sure that they get downtime at the end of the transaction, and really treating people as individuals. I think this kind of concept of active management is really important, where you really understand what drives different people. So for me, kind of having that really supportive culture at Simmons and Simmons is absolutely essential. And then obviously we live in an era, and the pace of change is phenomenal. But I think it's a really exciting time to enter the profession. My theory is as well, if we get our clients right, we get our people right, and we get our tech right, the financial results will follow. But you do have to sometimes recognize that it is a high performance culture, and we do have to ask a lot of our people.
And that would be my other question. When you mentioned AI, the legal sector is being reshaped by artificial intelligence, hybrid work, and globalization. What kind of leadership do you believe the next decade will require, and how are you preparing Simmons and Simmons for that future?
Yeah, I will answer your question, but for me, the starting point is that change is going to come from junior lawyers. Because it's the juniors that can really, really come up with tech-enabled solutions. In order to be in an AI-enabled law firm, we need to make sure that we've got really good junior skill sets. And by that, I mean making sure that we always have multidisciplinary teams. So making sure that we've got legal engineers, making sure that we've got kind of more traditional lawyers, making sure that we've got people who've come to law differently. For example, have got a computer science degree. Make sure that we've got people that have got different skill sets is really, really important. So I think that entry level, the more junior level is really where the engine room is when it comes to AI and how AI is changing the world around us. When it comes to leadership, first of all, I think you have to lead by example. So I use AI a lot. I obviously use it very differently because I don't fee earn anymore, but I'm constantly kind of challenging myself to really understand the tools that we have available, but also to frankly upskill myself. So I spend a lot of time, Margaret, at airports, given all my travel. So I make sure that every time I fly, I read at least one, if not two, AI articles, or articles in AI, I should say, or kind of listen to podcasts, or actually sometimes watch videos if I've got a bit longer. There's so many great online articles that you can read in online facilities, and our amazing AI team have pulled together kind of a reading pack for me. So I think when it comes to leadership, you've got to lead by example, and you've got to really be able to understand the world around you, but you've also got to tap into the talent at the firm and enable people. That's kind of the challenge that I set myself, is how are we enabling people to help us change? And we do have an amazing innovation culture at Simmons and Simmons. We were the first law firm to acquire a regulated legal engineering arm in 2019 in Wavelength, and really kind of putting innovation at the heart of the firm has been very much kind of part of my mandate. Creating a transformation team, setting the structures in place to make sure that we are ready and that we are actually changing as we speak, is also really important. But when it comes back to kind of leadership, it is a lot of it is leading by example, influencing people. Back to the old issue around kind of making sure that you're influencing people with change, getting people to understand that this isn't optional, change is here. But actually, we've got loads of people at Simmons who are really driving change, are really redefining workflows, are breaking down kind of the services, because lots of people are getting worried around how much work we're going to lose as a result of AI. There's also, I think, a really interesting question, which is what services can now we sell to clients with our use of AI? And how do you encapsulate knowledge? How do you productize knowledge? We've been selling knowledge products for a number of years now. I think we need to take that to the next level. So it's quite an exciting time, I think, both to be a leader at a law firm, but also in terms of coming into the profession as well.
And to sum it all up, when you think about the impact you want to leave on your firm, on the industry, and on the women coming after you, what do you hope your legacy will be?
It's interesting. Someone asked me that the first week I was elected as managing partner. I was thinking, my legacy, but actually it's a really good way of thinking about your leadership style. It was one of those questions that made me really stop and think, well, what do I want people to say about me once my term has come to an end? And I think for me, it's kind of that I was a person that was passionate about developing people and giving people opportunity and getting the best out of our people is how I'd like to be remembered. And lots of decisions that I make are around kind of making sure that our people feel supported to reach their potential. And really making sure that we continue, because I took over at a time when the firm's been doing well for years. Touch wood, you never know, given that we live in such volatile times. And really making sure that we're pushing ourselves, that we're going up the global rankings, but also that we're a firm that people feel really proud to work. Like, I love working at Simmons. It's an amazing place to work. And I want our people to have that sense of pride when they work at Simmons.
Thank you so much. It was very inspiring. Thank you for joining us today. And if this episode resonated with you, for those listening, share with another woman building her life across borders. And if you want to be part of a global community of women creating impact, connection, and purpose, join our WhatsApp community, follow us on LinkedIn, and stay close to the movement. Thank you for listening. Until next time.